Well, guys, you know what time it is. It's that time once again. You all know it. You all love it. It's tag time. Hello, everyone. Britton here, also known as Some Okie Dude, and I am back with another video. And yes, I have been tagged once more. I call it my reading philosophy because I guess there's not really a name for this tag. Just it's a tag where people get to talk about their reading philosophy. I was tagged by Matt from Books on a Back Porch, who is a really good channel, runs a lot of cool stuff on his channel. He just started not too long ago. Covers a lot of crime stuff, which I'm a fan of course, because I really like crime books. And he's got a good channel going. And also, this tag was kind of started by, or at least I saw him get tagged by Carl from Please Read Your Book, who you might recognize from a video I made a few weeks ago about him. But anyway, this is a video where I will basically be discussing kind of how I read and why. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, Britton, didn't you already make a video on this subject? You've made a couple of videos on this subject, which, yeah, I kind of did. But I'm hoping with this video, I can go into a bit more specifics on kind of what I look for when I read and why I read and how it is that I read, per se. Hopefully, we can get into more specifics, but we got about 4 questions here. Well, technically, 8 questions, technically. So, let's get to them before I start rambling on for too long, shall we? So, yeah, I'm going to try and be as brief as possible with these, but I make no promises, because, as you guys know, I like to ramble quite a bit. So, yeah, let's do it. Number 1, technically number 1 to 4, but number 1 is, what is your personal philosophy of reading? How do you think about reading? What does reading mean to you? How does reading life affect your non-reading life, etc.? And that's a really good question to start out with. Again, I kind of talked about this a little bit in some other videos. I'll link them down below for anyone who's interested. Generally, my reading philosophy is to I try to read books that are outside of my comfort zone. I like to read books that make me uncomfortable in a lot of ways. But really, to be more specific, my reading philosophy is that I don't really care for frivolous entertainment. I kind of talked about this a little bit in my on escapism video that I did a few months back. And I don't really have much else to add to that, but I did want to say that I don't really care for being merely entertained. I mean, that's a good thing, and don't get me wrong, there's certainly good books out there that are just for that. But when I read, I want a deeper experience. My reading philosophy is that I want to empathize with different people. That's why I read, because I see different perspectives. I see perspectives from people that I will never know or never be, and that's kind of the magic of reading, really. But in terms of philosophy, I guess in terms of like setting a goal line of what a philosophy, if you will, is more just read as much as I can. I would do a very big disservice if I just read 1 or 2 genres. Now, I have the genres that I enjoy, of course, that I cover on this very channel, but I would feel very disingenuous if I did not read as much as I possibly could from all sorts of different genres, because as I've learned over the years, books are books, ultimately, they're words on a page. So I try to read as much as possible because I want to expand my knowledge, my mind, as much as possible, because again, I don't really care for frivolous entertainment, if you will. I want to be challenged by something. I want to be confronted by something. I want to be taken out of my comfort zone. I've said it a few times. I like to test my limits as a reader. But really to keep the core of like what my philosophy is, it is to read as broadly as possible and to read as widely as possible. And I often encourage people to do the same, because I think it doesn't only make you better readers, but I think it also makes you better content creators as well. Because I think a lot of different books from a lot of different genres can teach you a lot of interesting things about life and writing, if anyone's interested in that, and all sorts of other things. But as to some of these other questions, how do you think about reading? Well, I don't want to go into like super pretentious, like pseudo spiritual stuff, but I kind of view it as a hobby, if you will. But I also view it, like I said, kind of as a way that I can understand different viewpoints from my own, to understand different people. It's really, if I could be more frank, to be more clear, if I could be as clear as possible, I should say, is I read books because I want to know what it is like to not just be human, but also to read, to encounter the human experience in the many different kinds of people that you'll find. And there's a lot of really good books out there that will do that. And that's really why the great books are the great books. You know, they talk about subjects and ideas and topics that will last forever, as long as people will keep reading them, of course. Because I don't really, I'm not really the type who likes to talk about what is going to last or not. I don't really think that's my place, more as a critic. But anyway, but what does reading mean to you? Kind of what I said before. It's very much a it's very much a different. It's very much it's a way that teaches me how to be a human being. You know, I mentioned a while back I have autism. That means I have a very different perspective from most other normal people out there. Which, I mean, I'm normal. That's autistic people are normal too, but you know, we definitely, us Aspies definitely have a unique way of looking at the world, and we don't always see the world in ways that other more average people might. And I find that reading can kind of give you context, can give you a broader perspective on what being a person is actually like. So I think reading is very helpful for that, and that's kind of what it means for me. But it's also, again, I said it in another video, but it's kind of an exercise in empathy. It's an exercise in understanding people, not who just of people who are like me, but also people who I will never be, people I will never grow to understand as a person. Which, you know, that's why I read. And also I read because I just like to dream in different worlds that aren't just my own. Because, you know, I live a pretty average suburban existence. I mean, nothing wrong with it. It's a great life. I can't really complain too much about it. But, you know, sometimes when you're in the suburbs, you know, you yearn for something more. So, yeah, it's kind of where I'm at when it comes to that. So, how does your reading life affect your non-reading life? Well, it's affected it a lot differently since I started a BookTube channel. I'm definitely doing it a lot more than I used to. And I'm always trying to find time to read, usually in the evening. I like to read in the evening because I just find it's a better time for me to, you know, sit around and not do too much. But, yeah, I really enjoy, but yeah, I think my reading life, it can definitely get in the way sometimes. There are definitely days I don't feel like reading, and I just don't, because, you know, I'm definitely, you know, I'm trying to deal with, you know, some days I'm just tired, I don't feel like reading, and some days, you know, just don't feel like it, and it just happens. But generally, I try to revolve my schedule where I'm reading a lot, very frequently, and I was already reading pretty frequently even before I started BookTube, but I think I've become a better reader since I've started BookTube again. So, yeah, there you go on the first couple questions there. Number two, when did you first come to think of yourself as a reader? This is an interesting question because, like, I've always been reading as far as I've been aware. I mean, at first, I generally read stuff that had pictures in it. I really liked illustrations in books. So I would pick up, like, history books, and, like, there were, like, old Bibles, because I read the Bible a lot when I was a kid, that had little pictures. I always liked looking at the pictures, and then I started, you know, reading the stories in the books, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is actually pretty cool too. So, you know, I've always been reading since I was a kid. Like I mentioned in my Great Gatsby video, I would get in trouble when I was at school with teachers. Even when I was in high school, around 18 years old, there were still teachers who would get after me for reading, even though I wasn't really, you know, doing anything. You know, I wasn't hurting nobody. But that's great English, by the way. But I guess, like, when I finally was like, you know what, I guess I'll say I am a reader, because I mean, I was never really self-conscious about it, but, you know, it wasn't something I declared myself until maybe around middle school, high school, where I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I guess I'm a pretty big reader. I didn't really think of myself that way, but I'm reading all these books, all these comics, all these other things that I like to read. So, well, I guess I'm a reader. It was very much a resigned kind of. There wasn't really like a one moment. I guess it's kind of a weird question. I mean, it's a good question, but it's kind of a weird question because, like, for me, because like I don't know if there was like a one moment where I was like, on the mountain and I gained the meaning of life and it was 42. I didn't gain any of that, but it was always just kind of, it was always there. I don't really know how to describe it. I was always reading. I was always, thinking about reading. I was always experiencing different things. And I didn't really want to become. Now, if you asked, when did you decide to become a writer? I could tell that story. And I already did in my Great Gatsby video, which, I just posted last week. Go watch it. But, yeah, I always kind of knew I was a reader. There was never really like a eureka moment where I was in the bathtub and was like, oh, I'm a reader now. It was just, I was always reading. So, yeah, a good question, though. Not a bad question at all. Just kind of a weird one for me, because I was always, it's not one it's not one I'm really sure how to answer, really, because, again, nothing wrong with it. Just, it's not really, I didn't really have an answer prepared for that. I don't have an answer prepared for any of this, but definitely one that I'm not entirely sure how to put it. But but yeah, I've always been kind of a reader. So, that's kind of my question, or that's my answer for number 2. So number 3 and number 4, technically, which are also good questions, but I'm not entirely sure how to answer them. But not entirely sure how to answer this either. But what are my goals or hopes for your reading life? What goals do you have? That's interesting, because I mean, I guess the closest thing I could say is that my top 10 books that I hope to read during the year is kind of like that. Those are kind of the goals and hopes that I hope to read before the end of the year are those books. Those are books I like to get to, above everything else that I'm hoping to read. But I guess to keep things simple, and I hate to say this because it's kind of a cliche answer, I guess, but I think it rings true. But I just want to read as much as I can. I want to consume as many stories as I can from many different authors and ideas and philosophies, because I've always had this desire to know things ever since I was a kid, and reading is a very good way to do that. I mean, there are other good ways to do that as well. Like going out and actually doing stuff. But I've always liked to learn about things, and stuff like history and books and all this kind of stuff that I really like. So I guess my goals kind of were. It kind of shifted over time, because I was one of those guys who was like, oh man, science fiction and fantasy gets raw dogged all the time, and I mean, I still think that. I'm not saying that's not the case, but my goal as terms of reading goals are books that are I want to just read as many books as I possibly can before I go. We got that. I genuinely hate this. I generally hate this, but I'm gonna say it the one time. I'm gonna be a hypocrite this one time. But you only have the one life, and you can only read so much. So, my goal, I guess, goals for that matter is just reading as many books as I possibly can before I go. And hopefully, if luck serves me right, I will still have plenty of time to catch up on a lot of books that I haven't read, and hopefully will read at some point in the future. And there's always new books coming out too, so it's it's just kind of a pain in the ass to deal with on a daily basis. Reading can be a really frustrating hobby sometimes, but I really it is very much. I do want to read as many books as possible, and I think that, and I often encourage other people to do that. Like, kind of going back to question 1, kind of what is my personal philosophy of reading, which is just read a lot. Read as much as you can, and don't just stick to the genres you prefer, though you can do that. I think that can be helpful in and of its own stuff, but read widely. Read as much as possible. Read a lot of stuff, because then, like I said, I think it'll make you not only a better reader, it'll make you a better writer if you're interested in that stuff, and a better content creator in general, if you widen your scope, if you will. But I really enjoyed. But going back to this other question here is, yeah, I mean, aside from my top 10 books that I want to read before the end of the year, which I only have The Bloody Chamber and Pale Fire only to go. I have read all of the other books that I hope to get to this year with varying results. It's been kind of a weird year so far. But I've managed to read most of them. So I haven't read the whole Gorman Gas trilogy. That's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But I really like the but yeah, the like top 10 books, like those are the books like I really want to get to before the end of the year. So yeah, that really worked. That just kind of worked out for me, and it's working out so far, so I can't complain too much. And it's gone a lot better than last year where I missed one. So, hopefully I don't miss one this year. But we'll see how it goes. So, yeah. But those are my goals. Sorry if that was a bit of an underwhelming answer. That's just kind of the best I got for right now. And the final question I have here, geez, we're going by this really fast, is what's exciting or important in your current reading life? This is another really great questions here today. I'm not really sure how to answer a lot of these. But I always find the most exciting part of reading is when I discover something new, is when I discover something that I realize will probably be a very deeply satisfying artistic experience. Like when I read Kindred last year, I remember having that feeling. It's always exciting when you read that really great book that just blows all the other books that you've read recently out of the water in comparison. I always find that to be the most exciting part of reading. And I always find that to be the most important is finding those great reads. I'm always trying to look for great books. I'm always trying to look for books that break the mold, if you will. I mean, not necessarily that, I want like this like hardcore, experimental stuff. I mean, that's fine. But what I do mean is I really like to read. I always am the most excited when I find books that I know I'm going to love. And I'm also really excited when I find books that just blow my expectations out of the water. I find the greatest joys of reading. I also love being surprised. I love being surprised when I read. A good example of this was either last year or about 2 years ago. I read a book called The Prophet by a guy, I actually have it over here, Michael Coreda. I think that's how you pronounce his name, Michael Coreda. I knew I was going to like it. I knew I was probably going to enjoy it. It's a crime novel. It's about a subject I'm very passionate about, which is American football. It's something that I connect with. It's something that connects personally to me. But it also really surprised me because I wasn't expecting it to get as deep and as dark as it sometimes got. And it was really, and I'm not going to pretend it's a perfect book, but it was a book that just really, spoke to me as a person in ways that I didn't expect. I was not expecting I wasn't expecting that particular book to get as, immensely, as deep as it got, as intense as it got. And, I wouldn't say it's like Elroy levels of insanity, but it's definitely it's definitely a type of book where I wasn't expecting it. And once I read it and it just knocked me off my feet, I was glad that I had read it. And I do hope to read more from Michael Coreda. I think he's a fantastic author. The Prophet is an amazing book, very underrated book, I think. I actually talked about it a few years ago on the channel. So, I'll link that down below if you guys want to watch that. But the ones that really excite me are books I know I'm going to love, the books that really surprise me, and books that really, that really break the mold, that really takes me out of my common existence, and not just books either, comics, And, I remember something that my old teacher used to tell me is to seek and it's kind of something I saw on Matt's video, where he kind of talked about, kind of what he looks for when he reads, really. But it kind of reminded me of what my teacher told me. But he's like, seek the good, the true, and the beautiful. And I guess that kind of cuts back to question one, I guess, which is what's my reading philosophy. If I do have a reading philosophy or just a philosophy in general, it is to seek virtue, to seek the good, the true, and the beautiful. What is, true pieces of art as compared to just, mindless entertainment. Which, again, nothing wrong with books that are entertaining. I mean, hey, I read to entertain myself. That's fine. It's, nothing wrong with that. It's just, I want something more than mere entertainment. And I am kind of going on a non sequitur, kind of going back to question one there. But, yeah, stuff that really excites me is, and what's important, I guess that's what's important, is to, kind of what I said earlier, to seek the good, the true, and the beautiful when I read. And that is kind of, I'm filibustering a little bit. I've been filibustering this whole video, but that's really what I look for when I read, and that's what excites me when I read, because I like to be taken out of my comfort zone. I like to be confronted, and it's not just with movies either. It's with books. It's with movies. It's with any type of art that I consume. I like to be uncomfortable, if you will, at least sometimes, not always, but when I read, I really like to make myself uncomfortable. I like to challenge myself. I mean, just recently I started Marlon James's book, A Brief History of Seven Killings, and I'm liking it. I'm liking it quite a bit. But it's a very unconventional book, and it's a very, very strange book, and it's a very non-traditional book, and I am really having a good time with it because it's so surprising and unexpected and interesting and not what you'd expect. So yeah, I guess that's kind of what excites me about reading, and why I enjoy, and what makes reading so enjoyable to me. But yeah, so I think that's it. I think that's all the questions. Thank you, Matt, for having me on. Or not having me on. I mean, not yet, maybe. Maybe someday. But thank you, Matt, for tagging me, is what I meant to say. And thank you, Carl, for making this. I don't know if he made this, actually, but thank you for setting Matt on this path. And then Matt tagged me, and now I'm going to be tagging some other people. So, people to tag. There were a couple people I had in mind. The usual suspects. In that, I mean, I'd like my friend Jason Furman to do it. I think I would really like to see what he says, because often I just get kind of irritated with him, because he'll say that he likes these particular things, and then he'll like something as batshit insane as House of Leaves. Raph, of course. I always like to hear Raph's opinions on things. So, Raph, if you watch this, I'm tagging you once again. I'm really sorry. I'll take a break from tagging you two for a little bit. I hadn't actually tagged Raph in a while, so I'm tagging you now. So take that. Some new blood. I'm going to be tagging my friend Josh from Already Overbooked. He's a good guy. He actually shouted me out recently on his YouTube channel, and I wanted to repay the favor by tagging him in this thing that we're doing here. He's a good friend of the channel, good guy. I enjoy him a lot, and he's also a fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is a really good show. So I always appreciate fellow It's Always Sunny fans. So yeah, Josh, I'm tagging you, and the last person I'm tagging is Mark's Book Lounge. Mark from the Book Lounge / Mark's Book Lounge. He's become a friend of the channel recently. He's a good guy. I enjoy watching some of his videos, and he's just been very good friend and very supportive of the channel, and also supportive of the Discord, even though the Discord is not the it's not very active, unfortunately. But yeah, those are the people I've tagged, and that's about it in terms of this reading philosophy tag. Wow, I thought this video would go on a little longer, but anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, as I like to do. You can comment, subscribe, like all the videos. If you guys want to do this tag, feel free. But, before people have been tagged, so, go out and tag other people. Yeah, so like, subscribe to all that fun stuff. You can find me on Twitter. You can also find me you can find me on Goodreads and Letterboxd, where I write reviews that are probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now. You can also find me on Instagram and Blue Sky. I don't use Blue Sky very much, but I am starting to get the hang of it. So, find me on there. It's not too different from Twitter, so it's not that big of a hassle. But yeah, like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you guys think of this video. Did I make sense, or was I just going off on tangents for almost 30 minutes, which, that's kind of what I often do, so, spare no expense. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I don't really have much more to say aside from what I already said, and yeah, that's all I got to say for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this. See you guys later. Bye-bye.